Good evening, everybody. Calling this meeting of the special meeting, Board of Trustees special budget meeting to order on October 20th, 2025 at approximately 6:03 p.m. Clerk Lauken, I'm going to pass you this mic, and if you could do the honor.
I think I can enunciate. How do I sound? Do I sound all right without it? There you go. All right. Well, then let's do that roll call here. Trustee Alfano.
Here.
Trustee Jorge. Trustee Jorge.
Here.
I saw you there. Trustee Constantos.
Here.
Trustee Kozar.
Here.
Trustee Kumar.
Here.
Kevin Patrick.
Here.
Oh, that's right. Sabri, he's here.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, if we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Okay, so we will move along to public comments, and I'm going to hand it off to our manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Clerk, do we have anybody who has signed up?
I apologize, but I did not have the sign-up sheet, so we are for an open free-for-all.
Okay. Mr. President, if you want to make the announcement, if anybody wants to speak.
You got it. Go ahead.
Okay. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on agenda items, so public comments on agenda items? Going once? No, he can hear. It's not on the PA. It's just to be recorded, so we can record this. Any public comments on non-agenda items? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Then we'll move on to the next part. And I apologize, we only have one microphone, so I will be doing my best Phil Donahue impersonation. And now we're going to go into the 2026 budget workshop and department presentation. And I am joined by Finance Director Susie Micah and Interim Director Michelle House.
So before we begin this presentation, one of the handouts that I handed out to each one of you is a listing of all of our fund numbers. So Fund 10 is the general fund, and then list all the departments and then the other funds thereafter. I wanted this handout for you so that A, you have something to follow along with, not necessarily just for tonight because it's not going to be as clear for tonight, but going forward when you get the budget book that we're revising and revamping for 2026, it is going to be in department order and in fund order. So that this way, when you are looking for things in the future, you'll be able to find them relatively easy. So that is just the beginning format so that you have a tool from this point forward to reference. The other part of it is that you will see, and you'll hear several of us as department heads that might be repetitive on this evening, there were several divisions within the Public Works Department, Police Department, Fire, and Recreation that had multiple divisions. And we found that to be very, very cumbersome and very, very difficult to follow and very repetitive in terms of your day-to-day spending. So what we did is we consolidated those. You won't see that on your list because we consolidated them, but that's a lot of work that we've done on the back end and continue to do so on the back end. So I just wanted to state that tonight and clarify that as we as department heads present that to you this evening. So to kick it off, going forward right now, the general fund revenues for the general fund, the first main item is the property taxes, which right now, when we present the tax levy to the board for presentation, we'll be working off of the 2.9%, which was the CPI based on the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So next month in November 24th board meeting, you'll get that tax levy presentation. Also, with this year's budget, we received a letter from both the police and fire pension boards with their requests for funding for their pensions. So $2.5 million is the request from the police pension to prevent negative funding, and then $1.3 million is to prevent negative funding for the fire pension board for this year. There's also an item that you will notice as we go through this budget process, and once the final budget is passed in 2026, is that the cannabis tax for 2025, there were two line items for $80,000, one for the police fund and one for the fire fund, that said a contribution to the fire and police pension funds. But the way that it was presented on the budget book this year was that that was additional revenues coming into the village. And the fact is it's not. It's an overstatement of revenue. That $80,000 that was allocated to both $80,000 for the police fund and $80,000 for the fire pension fund is from the original cannabis tax that is taxed from the two establishments that we have within town. And so what the ordinance that we researched found was that a third of that tax that's collected is supposed to go to the Parks Department or Parks and Recreation, a third to police, and a third to fire. So that was an overstatement that was done this year that we're cleaning up for next year. So you'll notice that that'll be down the road. That's a big change that we noticed on that and are reporting correctly. And then at this moment, the current projections are estimated to be at $27.1 million right now for the general fund.
And now, under the Office of Village Manager, we have two sections, and that's Administration and Public Affairs. First, we'll talk about Public Affairs, and that has to do with the elected officials' salaries, commissions, legal services, general village membership, dues and conferences, sales tax rebates, and employee appreciation. And now in the manager's office, we also have salaries and training for village manager's office staff. Village manager's officer staff includes the village manager, assistant village manager, executive assistant, and it's not listed up there, but also our administrative aide. Bless you. Under information technology, we also have software annual service agreements and renewals, equipment maintenance, security systems, and salary for the IT manager. Taking a deeper dive on a 2026 budget initiatives under public affairs, there's also appreciation events we'll have lined up. Employee appreciations, service award event, and a commissioner appreciation reception as well. We're taking commission requests so we can start putting the budget together for 26. As you know, the commissions have been reconstituted, and we're still reviewing all these requests. Increased costs for video recording and commissions and closed captioning services. Also, as part of the village manager's office, we have minimal changes. We're complete moving the assistant village manager expenses from finance to the village manager's office's budget. We are separating human resources from assistant village manager position. And as I had mentioned, we are adding the village administrator aide position for the increased workload. Under information technology, there's an estimated increase, and this is due to continuing consolidation of department software costs into the IT budget, investments in software technologies to improve efficiencies in customer service. There's a customer relations management software that we'll be bringing on board, as well as a BSNA ERP software implementation. We're going to have a time and attendance software change, an agenda management software change, and then we're also going to have some additional recreation software. And then planning for this facility with temporary staffing and equipment valuation throughout the facility.
For 2026, in the finance department budget, one of the things that was not budgeted in 2025 is employee benefits. So as we look at employee benefits for the finance department, it's $100,000 for 2026, and that is roughly 13% of the finance department's overall budget. The personnel cost in finance alone is 86% of the total expenses within the finance department. And the other large expense line item within finance is contractual services. And contractual services is roughly 11% of the finance's budget. But of that 11%, 83% of it is the annual audit that's done for the village. And then the other two minor items that are nowhere near as expensive is the publishing of the annual treasurer's report and then the production services for utility billing. So those are the major expenses within the finance department.
For community development, personnel accounts for approximately 69% of our total budget. We have had an increase in personnel due to increased code enforcement services this year, and that includes 7 full-time and 6 part-time employees for the total department. This year, our costs have been increased within economic development. We added the economic development consultant within this budget. However, the deputy director position has not been filled at this time. The remaining portion of our budget includes training and conferences, engineering services for planning, dues and publications, and office supplies. Also within Community and Economic Development's budget are a couple special projects. One that you'll hear more about as we keep going through this budget process is a train car that we're proposing to relocate to Villa Park along the Illinois Prairie Path. That's a donation from multiple different partners and groups. And that would include getting the car itself, transporting the car to Villa Park, and then also materials to renovate the car. On the right-hand side of the screen, the top picture is a picture of the car that would be brought back to Villa Park. On the right-hand side, the center picture and the bottom picture, the Illinois Railway Museum has a car that has been fully renovated, so that's a potential picture for what our car could become. So that will be a future project that we're hoping to bring back to you. The village itself would be responsible for covering the car, a security system for the car, doing the interior remodel, and then a historical plaque with information on that car. We also included a branding and identity plan to create village standards, including logos, fonts, colors used on all village correspondence, including print and media. And then that also could keep going into gateway signage within our village, wayfinding signage, and standard for streetscape furniture used throughout the village.
Okay, for essential services, which is HR and the public information experts. So currently right now, our budget includes the HR manager and the HR generalists, and then the PIOs are covered under the manager's budget. So we're going to consolidate that since all four of us work for the same group. We're reconsolidating the budget to put all four of us in the one line in essential services. Second part is risk management coverage. Currently we're with IRMA, and we've been told renewal could be as high as 15 to 20%. We are working on some different options for that. As you can see, the total amount, if that increase goes through at that amount, is over $1 million, 1,238,000 to be exact. So this is also depending on the village audit. Once that's completed, they'll actually give a positive number on what the increase will be based on our audit. But for right now, that's a guess of what it's going to be, basically. Next part is we're adding some new software. Not very expensive, under $5,000. We have a program called Frontline Evaluation Tracker. Right now, we currently do evaluations on certain union employees. Their raises are based on the evaluation or whether or not they received a raise for the annual increase or not on steps. So we're adding a digital program to do that. Instead of doing it on paper, it's easier to track, easier to monitor the scoring, and basically easier to track by doing it digitally. Along with that software is going to come with a section for claims, where we could monitor our claims that are coming in from the village that are going to the insurance company. Next thing is we're going to update our scheduling system. The current scheduling system we have is TimePro. It's pretty outdated. It's kind of like using a DOS program, to be honest with you. It's been very difficult to manage. So we're going to a different program called UKG. It's roughly just a little bit more in cost than the prior program. So it's kind of mainly basically just switching it out with a better program. It's more advanced. We're switching out our FOIA program. Same thing, the price is just about the same. It's just a more updated program, a little bit easier to track things, and a lot easier to generate reports. The last thing is the EAP program. We currently don't have one, so we're looking to implement one. We're looking at a couple different sources that mainly deal with public safety and also can deal with public works and office employees as well. But like I said, right now, we don't have a program, so we're looking to implement one. That's it.
Good evening. I'm Chief Kubish from the Police Department. It basically spells out our organization, which you're all familiar with. The costs, as far as budgetary increases go for us, really comes down to the salary increases, which were approved recently by the union negotiations that you folks were involved with. Normal basic vendor costs, and obviously with the increase of salary comes the increase of training. Due to the Safety Act, there's mandatory training that we must do, so those costs have increased. The only thing that the police department requested, which is not even really on our budget, is an additional car, which would be to be able to start moving out some detective cars. Other than that, we have all the equipment we need, and I believe that we're actually 3% less than last year's budget, according to Susie. So that's all I have for the police department.
Well, I'll put a stop to that one. Fire department budget. This is our current situation. Our authorized staffing level is 21 firefighter paramedics and 6 lieutenant paramedics. We currently have 1 vacancy still from that we're hoping to fill. We just started a new test, went live today until December 5th, and then hopefully we can get that last vacancy filled. So as Susie described in our fire budget, we had a division consolidation, so everything was consolidated into one account. Next slide. So our fire budget breakdown is 92% salary and benefits and 8% actual operational expenses, which includes fire equipment, our DUCOM fees, training, public education, maintenance, and supplies for both to operate both stations. Our big asks for this next budget is I'm going to ask for 3 additional full-time firefighter paramedics. And as I explained 2 years ago, what this does is the additional paramedics will allow us to at least have a partially staffed engine with 2 people if we have an ambulance call going on. What this does is also addresses some of the union safety concerns about having personnel respond alone in the middle of the night or responding back to the station alone. The initial cost of this is around $232,000 plus benefits. And my funding option for this was to increase our ambulance fees to the full cost report. As you remember, our ambulance fees now are 75% for non-residents, 50% for residents. Some of the big ticket budget items is this is going to be the 3rd installment for our Village AEDs, and that'll complete that purchase. Our cardiac monitors, we're asking for 2. This will replace 9-year-old cardiac monitors. And then 2 Stryker-powered stair chairs with the advent that we just replaced, or we sent back the 2 Furno ones we bought 2 years ago that were had multiple issues. So we were actually had a full refund for that. So we're just going to add that to the cost of the Strykers, which are a little bit more. So some future budget considerations. The Medic 80 ambulance replacement that we ordered, if you remember, in December 2024 with a 2 to 2.5 year delivery. It looks like that's going to be pushed back to 3 years solid, 2027. So what we did is we held off on buying the Stryker cot and load system until 2027 when we get that ambulance, because why would we want to buy it now and waste 2 to 3 years of a maintenance contract? Officer 82 vehicle replacement, we pushed into 2027. The next ambulance purchase is in 2029, but with the 3-year expectancy, I'm asking to order it in 2026. We wouldn't pay for it until 2029, but at least we can get into the queue and get that ordered so we can get back on our rotation of every 9 years. And then also the Medic 81 Stryker cot load system in 2029. And that's all I have.
Good evening. For the Public Works Department, just a little bit of overview. We have 34 full-time employees. We do hire up to 8 seasonal to help assist in operations during the summer and 2 engineering interns. Looking at some of the work orders and stuff coming in, we are requesting to increase staffing levels by 1 in each of the utility side and then the street and maintenance side, with that being probably an arborist. Some of the recommendations from the board and from the residents is to have an arborist on staff. So, additionally, in Public Works, we do have the fleet. That's the fund, General Fund 180. Overall, we have 4 mechanics, and so the total expenses for this account is a little shy of $1 million, with personnel making up almost half of it. We do have a few increases this year. Pending some of the tariffs and some of the supply issues going on, we are seeing an increase in parts. And so we are increasing the parts budget up about 35% to cover all those increases, because that is parts for the whole fleet of the village. So fire, police, public works, parks, we cover it all. And then a small increase in gas and diesel. Obviously, that's market-based, and those prices fluctuate. So, but overall, we made some cuts elsewhere with some efficiencies of such as dropping our contract for uniforms and going to a uniform allowance. That overall, even with those increases, we're about the same level that we were in the 2025 budget. Engineering, it's mostly all personnel. There's some costs in this account in the capital, or sorry, not the capital, general fund, for other things like office supplies, training, and all that. But mostly it's 90% of the expenses in this account is for personnel. That is the village engineer, a senior engineer, a regular civil one, and a senior engineering technician, and a position for a future CE that's been in the budget for several years, just hard time filling. The next fund is garbage. This is our contract with LRS. Per our LRS contract, we have a 5% annual fee that sets in. That contract is set to expire in 2028. Additionally, we have the electronics recycling in this account as well. This past year, we lost our vendor, as I think most of the board knows, and we've switched vendors. But that switch in vendors has resulted in essentially a 40% reduction in cost of that service. So that greatly saved on our garbage budget. And then a lot of the costs for the billing that used to be third party have been incorporated into the BSA conversion. So overall, it's only a 3% increase to account for the LRS contract increase. Similar to fire, all the public works, streets, and forestry divisions got consolidated into one of just one public works fund. So we consolidated 5 different funds that were previously the Public Works Admin, Public Works Traffic, Public Works Storm, Public Works Street Maintenance, Public Works Forestry, all into just one Public Works budget. So the numbers are kind of a big increase from last year if you look at those, because it's a compression of all those. So overall, 78% of this budget is for personnel. As we were moving personnel back from Fund 60 during the COVID years, the cost of personnel was moved out of general fund into the street fund, and that is eating up, as you can see, about 1.5 of our sales tax to improve roads. So we're looking to move it back in. And additionally, we used to transfer money from MFT over to the general fund to account for materials and eligible expenses. And working with Susie, we've just decided to move all those expenses straight into MFT fund. So reduces the amount of transfers and a little bit more transparent and straightforward in the MFT funds of what we're paying, utilizing our MFT funds for. Additionally, I kept the contractual tree trimming in the budget for another $200,000 for this upcoming year. And then we are still looking to do another 150 trees. Now that we've had bids and talking with the contractor, we reduced that down to $60,000. I guess this is so me, right? So moving on to the capital, with the new coding that we did with BSNA, what used to be Fund 67, I believe it's now Fund 11, which is our capital buildings and grounds improvement. We kept the capital, Susie, kept it back to Fund 11 and Fund 65, Fund 11 being buildings and grounds. This is generally fund backed for the revenues, but we do still have about $225,000 of DCO grants that we received that we'll receive hopefully in this upcoming year through reimbursements, through some improvements to the police department, along with some of the fire and public works. So just some highlights out of that. We do have in the fire, we have the already approved ICC conversion and improvements to the Fire Station 81. We're anticipating about $1.2 million being left to be spent in this upcoming fiscal year. And then looking at the Fire Station 82 improvements, the initial estimates are coming in at around $780,000. Additionally, the requests have been for a perimeter fence around the police department that's been looked at, and then some interior renovations for parks. Tim can probably expand further, but we have some projects planned with Lufkin with the landscape, and that's kind of to complete the looks of Lufkin and with regards to some perimeter vegetation for the residents that's been asked, and trees. The Lions baseball field improvement here at Lions Park. And then the Public Works building needs some emergency repairs. We've lost the generator this year, so we no longer have generator backup at the building for Public Works and Community Development, so that would be replacement of that. And we're losing the AC unit, so we need new compressors. Additionally, at Village Hall, there's some interior renovations to make some more office spaces, to make some better efficiencies and improvements to the building, and along with some badly needed plumbing improvements due to frequent backups.
So next I'll go over each of the TIF funds. So starting with TIF 7 is the St. Charles Road TIF. This was our newest TIF. Projects that have been included within this budget include the design and construction of additional visitor parking on Holm Avenue, directly outside of the police station for use by all village buildings for visitors to our facilities. Right now, it's sometimes hard to find parking when you're coming to visit any of the village departments. Also, design of a water main lining project on St. Charles Road. We have budgeted for one each of the facade, tenant, and site improvement grants at a maximum matching $25,000 each for a total of $75,000. And then also land acquisition, we've included $500,000 for any opportunities identified with our new economic development consultant. Moving on to TIF 6, which is the North Avenue TIF. Projects that we've included include, it's not TIF 6. What the TIF 6 is? Sorry, this is the North Ardmore TIF. It is TIF 6, but it's the North Ardmore TIF. I apologize. Is finishing the engineering of the West Terrace Alley construction, which is just west of Ardmore, and then construction of that alley improvement as well. Patching of the North Metro lot. The reason we're only proposing patching is due to potential changes with any developments going on in that area, and then proposing resurfacing of the South Metro lot, and then also marketing signage within that district. Also, land acquisition budgeted within that TIF as well for any opportunities identified with our consultant. Moving on to TIF 5 is the Kenilworth TIF. Those projects include the remaining engineering of a connection between Park Boulevard to the Prairie Path and Museum, and then also construction of that connection. Also marketing for the Old Town District, as we're calling it. We've also budgeted for one each of the facade, tenant, and site improvement grants at $25,000 each for a total of $75,000. We've also budgeted for the payment to the Kenilworth Townhome owner who we have a redevelopment agreement with as part of that development, and then some also dollars for land acquisition opportunities. TIF 4, that's the old St. Charles Road TIF, and all of those funds will be transferred at the end of this year. That TIF has been closed. And then lastly, TIF 3 is the North Avenue TIF. Projects included within this year are the design of the North Avenue frontage road for some parking modifications, Demolition of any acquired properties, including the Wawak property that we acquired in 2025. Fencing of our public works yard, which falls within this TIF. Engineering and construction of a detention basin just south of the Briar Rabbit development. That would help with some flooding that occurs at the North Avenue and Ardmore intersection. And then also improvements to the Ellsworth drainage ditch adjacent to the proposed Bell Tire development. And then we've also budgeted for 3 grants each of the facade, tenant, and site improvement grants for this year. And then have also budgeted $2.5 million for any land acquisition opportunities identified with our consultant as well. Remediation of any properties is also a separate item budgeted for within this TIF.
Kind of as previously discussed, the motor fuel tax fund, historically we used to just transfer the money out into general funds and other funds. With Susie's help, we are creating expenses out of this fund so that it's straightforward. Overall, for the revenue, this does have its own revenue. This is our allocations that we collect from the state for the portions of the motor fuel tax collected throughout the state, along with interest gained. So we get about $980,000 a year through our portions of the allocations. With that, now we're moving some of the operating expenses in MFT. The larger purchases, obviously, is the purchase of salt and salt materials for winter operations. We do have purchase materials being aggregate, concrete, asphalt, and then the street lights and street electricity, our ComEd bills are actually MFT eligible. And then for our capital projects that we're looking to utilize MFT funding for, we have Park Avenue from Ardmore to Cornell. That's kind of a reconstruction, fixing the sidewalks, fixing the parking stalls in the roadway, as we have some ADA concerns that were raised, and that needs to be reconstructed to meet those ADA. And then continuing some resurfacing. And the roads that we're focusing on for next year is Adams from Ardmore to Summit, and then Frank from Summit to Grant. Additionally, at some point, we're anticipating our bill for our portion of the Illinois 64th Street modernization that IDOT's performing. We entered into that agreement last year in 2024 with the state of Illinois, but that project has not started yet, so we have not received any invoices for the state on our portion.
The hotel motel tax, the village's rate right now is 5% of the total gross receipts for businesses renting or leasing rooms within our village. That cap, per the state of Illinois, is at 6%. This tax can be used for various purposes. It's not very constricted, which includes promoting tourism and conventions within the municipality and attracting non-resident overnight visitors. The village has historically used these funds to subsidize the Parks Department. So if you look at the past 5 years, any revenues that we've generated out of the hotel motel tax is transferred over to the Parks Department, and the average amount collected is anywhere between $105,000 to $155,000 a year.
So I'm going to talk about the NESRA Fund. This is our special rec association that we pay into. We pay roughly about $180,000. It varies minimally from year to year. A couple of capital projects this year out of that budget. Our playgrounds that have engineered wood fiber, they're up for to stay compliant. We need to fill them up from year to year, so that's the $10,000 for that. And then we're looking to do an ADA transition plan. The last one done by Villa Park Parks and Rec was in 2013. For best practices in Parks and Rec, it should be done every 10 years, and then updating the board every 5 years, just to make sure we're staying on track with the recommendations from the consultant that we would use. Projects can be reimbursed. If they're ADA projects, we can get reimbursed through this fund. And last year in 2024, NESRA served over 140 residents of Villa Park. The Recreation Fund, 35. Last year, this fund was combined with the pool fund. So this is where the new facility was put into. So we kind of moved it back into this fund. So payment, the second one, payment 3 of 5 for our fitness center equipment. That's upstairs. Basically a 5-year lease to own. So that's one of our big expenses out of that. We're looking to do kind of a shade umbrella for the roof terrace upstairs. We merged our summer programs, which had its own line item, into fall and winter spring programs just to consolidate. We did see an increase in revenue due to our fitness center membership, and we've created a summer concert account that we did not have in the past. And this is our parks fund. This is more of our maintenance. We're looking to add a foreman for the parks department. We haven't had a foreman since pre-COVID, so looking to kind of get that position back. Some other big expenses out of parks, we're staying status quo, but doing native area management over at Twin Lakes. Our North Avenue streetscape maintenance for $15,000, just a general landscaping maintenance for $15,000, and then of course we have portable toilets at our parks, so that's an expense of $20,000. And then lastly, for our pool, we're looking to get a new line lane reel and cover for $5,500, and then replace some safety training equipment, some mannequins, some CPR training that is needed for an upgrade. And then we're just some minor bathhouse underground plumbing improvements and bathhouse electrical improvements. And then Mike kind of already touched base on this, but some just out of the capital for parks and facilities. Mike already touched base on that, so I don't need to repeat myself. Thank you.
Kind of moving into our enterprise, or continuing with the enterprise funds, we do have our street improvement fund, which is Fund 60. This is our combination of the referendum that the village had, along with the half-a-cent sales tax that goes into dedicated revenue for the street improvements. We garner about $2.1 million in sales tax. We do have about $250,000 of grants that are still outstanding that we should receive for the village, along with interest, and then we do have the fund balances remaining. For our capital expenses, our non-referendum, we track the project separately between what was included in the referendum and what was not. Overall, we have engineering services of about $2.258 million. That includes Ardmore Avenue, that you've seen the surveyors go up and down several times. For our Phase 1, we have the Villa Avenue improvements continuing with Phase 1 and 2. We have Villa Bridge. That's the crossing of Sugar Creek at Villa, finishing up Phase 1 and hopefully moving into Phase 2. And then we're looking to begin design on Michigan and Iowa from Plymouth to Ridge to kind of start design on those two sections of roadway to kind of pleat up what used to be called the College Streets program. And then we have our various maintenance projects. Overall, for construction in the non-referendum, we're looking at $1.525 million. With that is that $250 is actually dedicated for the public works yard improvement, as it's in desperate need of a facelift because it looks pretty shaggy up there. And then we have some portions of Harvard, included what we'll call the Jackson area to wrap up that project. We've now got all the storm sewers in. The last component of the Jackson area would be to resurface Jackson. So we've increased the limits from Jackson to go from Ardmore to Edison, and then we've included Harvard to go from Jackson to Madison to kind of clean up those streets down there to kind of finish off that monster project. And then we do have portions of Washington sewer separation, Section 2, which is picking it up at Monterey and Washington and carrying it down to Summit, along with Euclid separation, and then Westmore and Wisconsin separations. However, those projects are rather large, and so those are pending getting a loan from the IEPA. That process has, we can talk about it more in Fund 83, but there's portions of our larger capital projects that are funded throughout several enterprise funds. And then in the referendum, we're trying to wrap it up. So that areas are the Jackson. We have Yale from Jackson to Madison, portions of Westmore and Wisconsin. Overall construction is $2.65. So a total of about $3 million for capital referendum projects. The next one is capital equipment replacement. Talking with Susie, typically we've kind of funded this a little bit with our debt service bonds, which we're anticipating $267,000 in that. Out of this, we've kind of condensed, so we do have our lease payment with Enterprise. I think it's about $185. I'm confirming that because I only say that is the lease payments get included every time we receive vehicles, and that's been staggered, so we're trying to verify that amount. And then we do have our BMO Harris lease payment. That is the, we leased or took a line of credit from BMO Harris to pay for our Vector truck, the plow truck, that we received and the re-chassis of the ambulance, I believe. So that's an annual payment of $156,000. Moving forward in the capital, we have a single axle plow truck that was approved last year. We'll be getting ownership hopefully summertime of next year. So that's $276,000. So that's already accounted for. We are looking at keeping the 3 frontline squads being replaced, looking at an extended cab pickup for the Parks Department, to continue replacement of 12-plus-year-old vehicles, SUV replacement for Public Works. I put the SUV for fire. I apologize to police. I flip-flopped the fire and police SUV, so the police had on theirs. Fire's in 2027, so I apologize for that error, but another SUV. And then we're looking at a compact mini excavator for Public Works. As some of our excavating equipment's getting old, this will provide a little bit more tools in the toolbox. A mini excavator is a little bit more versatile and be efficient with digging. We're working on water mains and services. And then the fire department received some reimbursement, so they're looking to replace the power chair to replace those pieces of equipment out of the capital fund. Stormwater is the next business activity. So we do have stormwater fees. We collect about $583,000 from that, and then it is eligible for the capital fund transfer. The other half of sales tax goes into infrastructure improvements for water, wastewater, streets, stormwater. We do get grant reimbursements every once in a while, and then we do have the cost share with residents for our 50/50 backyard drainage program. Then other revenues vary throughout the year, as is the stormwater detention buyouts for pending economic development projects, and then we do get permit review fees. Operations is only $158,000, and the reason it increased 24% is because we do fund our native planting for our stormwater detention ponds. Out of this fund, Jackson Pond, which was constructed in 2021, that 3-year maintenance period that was required as part of that project has now expired. So the maintenance of the native plantings along the outside of Jackson Pond is now the village's responsibility. So to account for that, we put it in this year's budget. And then the capital project for stormwater this year planned is the Ellsworth Ditch Improvement, and then Yale Avenue. Didn't put new storm sewer down Yale Avenue from Jackson to Madison. Kind of moving on to our closing out our last couple of enterprise funds. We have the water fund. These are based on rates and utilities that we charge. So overall, we get about $6.48 million in revenues from our fees. That is where it currently stands. We're probably looking at doing the rate study here very, very in the near future, so that we can probably move our rate increases to be more of a June 1 to line up with DWC, so we don't have to do the 2 rate increases per year. So Susie and I have started that, but it's probably a little bit further after we get past budget and she gets past audit that we'll probably review those fees and bring recommendations to the board. Additionally, we have in here now lead service. So we do have the lead service replacement programs where we will reimburse residents. At the same time, we also have our capital side where the village will pay for the cost of the replacement, and then we charge the residents back. So we do have a line item there for the reimbursements that those residents in that program to pay, and then we do have permit fees, meter installs, and then we do use some of the utility sales tax transfer to help cover the capital projects. Operational wise, almost half of this budget is for the purchase of water, and then about the other half is pretty much for personnel. So overall operations is about $2 million. Personnel makes up 42% of that. $2 million, and then we do have one loan payment in this operations budget to repay a water improvement project. Capital-wise, we are looking to implement the lead service investigation replacement program for $275,000. That's to actually go and do some excavation on service lines for locations where we don't have knowledge of what the type of material it is, and then forecast actual replacement if lead's determined. We are looking at making improvements to our Cornell Reservoir. From our last inspections, we had the overhead elevated tanks as priority. Now that both of those have been coded and secured, we have some improvements, structural improvements that need to be made to Cornell. That's a 2 million gallon storage tank, so we want to make sure that's in good working order. And then some non-infrastructures, we've had some increases to materials. And then we're planning to still do some in-house replacements of both lead lines and sewer or water mains. And then we continue with our system-wide replacement of our older meters to the new high-accuracy per-gallon meters. And additionally, we got to start forecasting in battery replacements. The first round of our Omni or iPro meters, if we heard them talking about that, are nearing 10 years. The battery packs are guaranteed for 10 years, so we're anticipating battery packs dying on some of the very early replacements. Moving on, as it goes down the drain into the wastewater side, we have user charges of about $2.3 million. With that, we also have the combined sewer separation fees, which collects about $470,000 a year. This is where the EPA loans come in for the Washington sewer separation and the Westmore and Wisconsin separations. We'd be looking at getting loan funding. So we need that loan funding to complete those projects due to the cost and scope of those projects. So we're moving forward. However, the EPA loan process is very competitive now, where they get more applications than actual funding, and so it's a cycle. So we're preparing ourselves for the January to July 1st funding time frame, that if it's for unclaimed funding. If not, we're trying to get into the actual dedicated funding for the fall. And then we also utilize some of the sales tax transfers into this to cover capital projects. So overall, operational-wise, it's about $2 million. Personnel makes up 42% of that, and then we do have 6 current loans totaling a little over $500,000 that we have to pay annually for our previous sewer separation projects. Expenses, our main ones are our sewer reimbursement program. That's where we will assist residents with repairs to their sanitary sewer connection, the lateral. We're looking at, this has been on the system, but we're very close to updating our SCADA system, our supervisor control and data acquisition. That's our system that regulates our treatment plant along with all of our lift stations and pump stations. We need to make some improvements to our wet weather flow treatment facility and our CSOs. So we have some plans to do some engineering and repairs as those are significantly aged in need of repairs. The CSO outfalls, some of them are not sealing great, so we get backwater from Salt Creek during flooding events, putting a bigger demand on our system in Salt Creek. And then we're looking at the major sewer separations that we still have kind of pending are the Washington Sewer Separation Phase 2. Engineering's pretty close to being done. It's pending approval by the EPA and EPA loan approval, similar with Wisconsin from Washington to Kenilworth and Westmore from St. Charles to the tracks. So if we get EPA loans, we would move forward with those projects in this upcoming budget.
So in closing, some of the next steps that we're looking at in terms of the budget process is that there'll be a public hearing on both the budget and the tax levy at our board meeting on Monday, November 24th. So with that, the FY26 budget will be presented for adoption at the December 8th board meeting, and then the tax levy adoption will be presented at the December 22nd board meeting. So we'll leave it up to you for any questions.
All right. Well, I've been on this board for a little over 6 years now, and I think this is the best presentation I've seen on this board. So I want to thank the staff. I know that putting this together isn't easy. Budget season is never fun, but you're doing it, and I appreciate it. Thanks for all the hard work from our staff that went into doing this. I appreciate your time. Thank you. And thank you, Manager Rivas. We will go ahead and move along to... There's a presentation. Do you want to ask questions? Yes. Okay. We can ask questions. Okay. Trustee Cordova.
I have quite a few questions. So, yes, thank you for going through. I know budgeting is tough. How much of the $27.1 million in the general fund revenue relies on one-time or unstable sources like grants, TIF transfers, or the utility sales tax? And what's our contingency plan if those fall short? I have quite a few questions. I don't know how we should do this. We should do back and forth? All right. So I'm going to take them all. Risk management costs are projected to rise 15 to 20%, and we're adding systems and staff across all departments. What measurable efficiencies or savings off?
Really quick, do you want to ask one at a time, get an answer, and then ask?
Oh, I thought you said you wanted me to ask them all. Oh, okay.
Take your time.
Yeah, my bad. I thought you meant to knock them out.
So to answer your question about one-time revenue projections in there are no grant funding that are projected in the general fund revenues. We thought that wouldn't be fair to put in any number of grants that we're applying for because there's no guarantee that we're going to get them. So if we're pleasantly surprised and we get those, then those will be accounted for in that. The sales tax money is something that is somewhat what you would consider maybe a little bit more volatile. That is a big portion of the general fund's revenue stream coming in. I don't know the exact percentage off the top of my head, but at the moment that has been pretty stable through the years and stayed consistent with an average of 2 to 3% increase every year. I think the other part of your question is what mechanism do we have in place should we fall short of that? And my statement to that is at this moment, in terms of the way that we are still composing this budget document, is that it is still in draft form. And the way that we're viewing the budget document is right now is there are a lot of unknowns, or I shouldn't say the word unknown. So one of the things that one of my colleagues that just mentioned is for health insurance. Those increases for this year have been projected to be anywhere between 20 and 22% increases, as well as the liability insurance. So what one of my colleagues is doing is working with our broker to get that down. So we're got the worst case scenario plugged in, but until we get those affirmative numbers coming in, which hopefully we will have those before the public hearing so that we can give you more solid numbers. Right now, if I give you a number, it is so, I don't want to say non-fluid, but it's not fluid enough because as we've composed this document together, we've gone up and down that until we get those firm numbers in from our brokers and been able to lock in those expenses, we can give you a better projection of where we think we're going to be.
So on one of these slides, it had the risk management costs are projected to rise 15 to 20%, and we're adding systems and staff across departments. What measurable efficiencies or savings offset these increases, and what's our plan if those costs continue to grow faster than our capped revenue? I could run these back and forth too.
It's in the job description.
So right now, those requests for all those staffing suggestions or that have been brought forward to you is exactly that, they're requests. So that doesn't mean that they have been authorized or that they are going forward in fruition. Those will be held more solidly, if you will, once we do the public hearing on the budget, so that this way we can solidify whether we can move forward with a certain number of the capital projects, as well as personnel, as well as equipment replacement.
On slide 3, we have the property tax reflects CPI, which was reported at 2.9% by the U.S. Bureau of Statistics. Do these revenues assume that we do pass that?
Sorry, I get excited when we talk about numbers. So 2.9 is what the CPI that the U.S. Bureau of Statistics has put in back in December, and that is the maximum amount that we can propose or request from our constituents when we do the tax levy. So that 2.9% is strictly only on the property tax portion that we're looking to increase, which includes your police and fire pension numbers as well. So when I present to you the tax levy spreadsheet, it'll have it labeled out. I think I'm going to revamp it. It's going to look a little different maybe than what you're used to seeing on there, but it'll show the 2.9 because that's the maximum amount you can ask before going to referendum and asking the taxpayers for more. So that's where we use that number for.
I'll try to wrap it here, but so in general, we have a property tax increase that may be 2.9%. We have the LRS contracted increase by 5%, a small increase in water and sewer, an increase to the full cost for service used for ambulances, and then a small increase in recreation fees. It didn't say what it was. I looked at average house of $250,000, and it looked to be about $70 to $80 more in 26 than it was in 25. I could be totally wrong because I'm not a math person, but is that about what residents should expect in 26?
I apologize. I have not done the exact mathematics on that. To be fair, when I'm looking at the property taxes, when I present that tax levy to you guys, the second table that will be included, or third table that will be included with that presentation is I'm going to take an average tax bill of a resident of what the average price of a home is in Villa Park and put that percentage increase and translate that into dollars for you. So you will have that transparency so that you can see what that impact would be. In terms of those individual fees, I can add that on as a supplement since there are others that don't have anything to do with the tax levy, but put those as maybe a side note on there. And I'll write that note for myself so I have that for you.
And then what I'll do, for time's sake, I have like 8 more questions. I'll send them to you because it's just kind of nitty gritty, but I'll ask 2 more. When we talk about pensions, are we funding the full actuarially, I know I'm saying that wrong, determined pensions contributions, or just the amount to prevent negative funding? And then if it's the latter, what's the long-term plan to close the gap without putting more strain on the general fund, given that we can't exceed the tax cap?
Yeah, that's okay. So the amount that we're putting on there is for negative funding. They're when they do the actuarial report, they break it down into 3 different levels of funding that the village can do and what you can propose bringing forward. If we were to go with the full dollar amount that goes above and beyond, then that has a negative effect on the general fund with operations because that draws down our general fund ability, brings it down into a negative, if you will, or reduces the amount for the general fund. So one of the things that we're looking to do is once we get through this budget cycle, because of all of the changes, I'm trying to be positive here, so I apologize a little bit on the aspect of is there was so many things that were not budgeted and not accounted for in 2025 that we're trying to make sure that we don't miss in 2026. And every day we seem to keep finding different things. And so we're trying to clean that up and get that into a formative picture, because once we get that down, then I can take a look at and make a 5-year projection out. So maybe the answer is we don't have a definitive answer at this moment where I can answer that exactly for you, but the plan is forecasting for the next 5 years to look and see what that's going to look like in terms of what your revenues are going to be for the next 5 years, as well as your expenses. Both police and fire pension funds are supposed to be funded by 2040. So when they give you that actuarial funding report, even though they're giving you those different parameters in there, you're still, I'm going to say, within the guidelines of making sure that you're 90% funded by 2040. With that, when we look at doing the 5-year plan out, which unfortunately I will not have that for you, what I could do is just put in our ERP software system is just put in a 2 or 3% inflation number in there and just expand that out and give you a quick report. But that's just going to be something that's just going to be hypothetical quick. I would prefer to work with my colleagues and kind of go through it one by one and do a 5-year out and be realistic on what line items may be 2%, one which may be 1%, which may be 8%. And it's all a guesstimate, which is what the budget document is. And I think that that's something that's important to point out with giving you a monthly financial report as well, is that looking at and monitoring what we're bringing in and what we're spending every month, it gives us an indication as management behind the scenes that as soon as we see something not happening, we work behind the scenes and say, hey, we need to stop on this project or stop on that or not move forward on different things. And that's what our job is as management to do as we move forward. And that's some of the things that we're taking into effect as we've assumed our new roles this year with what we've come into in terms of trying to complete and fix and be a little bit more transparent with.
Just one more. Sorry. I'm not sorry. No, it's never ask how many I want. So you bring up, administration changes and whatnot. With all the administration changes and new positions and restructured departments, software investments, $100,000 to $125,000 forensic accounting engagement that's probably going to get on our way. Can we explain how this budget directly improves accountability and transportation for our residents? And what specific outcomes should the public expect to see that justify these new costs and shifts in structure? And more importantly, have we learned from the mistakes that have happened in the past few years with budgeting or misappropriated dollars, things like that? And I want to be kind of specific in saying we found so many issues in the last, you guys have done a great job of finding the issues. Now it's, how can we be accountable to our residents and say, we've learned from this, we're going to do this thing, here's 2 things that you can look at that will hold us accountable to them when we look at being fiscally responsible for their budgets and being stewards for their taxes that we're taking in.
So I think with that is what you'll see is as we're working on the budget right now and we're pulling it together, we're finding some of the mistakes that were made in the past. And so what we're trying to do is we're listing them out and we're incorporating them into this year's budget. As you look into each individual line item, we're trying to get our hands wrapped around in terms of making sure that we've got everything. So at this moment, as of this afternoon, actually, we've kind of got a good grasp of where we think we're going to land. I said, with the exception of the insurance brokers that we're waiting for some definitive numbers to see if they can rework those numbers, because then it'll give us a better view of what our bottom line number is going to look like. With that, we're going to send it back to the departments to go through and make sure that we're not missing anything. We've had a gazillion meetings between myself and the village manager and the department heads. That's all we've been doing really the last 2 months, 3 months is eating, drinking, and breathing budget, trying to make sure that we're not missing anything so that this way we're accounting for everything. And then we have a true picture of this is where we're at. And then the decision of which direction do we go in and make that, not necessarily proposal to you, but to show you of here's where we're at. This is everything that we found. Part of the presentation tonight is, for example, like my department in the finance department, the health insurance wasn't budgeted at all for my staff for this year. So, those bills come in, you got to pay them. You can't not pay their portion of it. And so we're making sure that it was left out for this year. So we're showing that we're including it for 2026. And that's included, as well as several items such as that. In terms of the forensic audit, from my understanding, it's a big portion of the forensic audit is to ensure that what was done in the past was poor management decisions, maybe, to ensure that that's exactly what that was and that there wasn't anything I don't want to say illegal or done incorrectly, but it's to make the board and the residents rest assured that this forensic will show that it was just poor management and bookkeeping of past management. If it's anything beyond that, then we'll take the measures that we need to take if something should occur from that. But I think it'll help the residents as well as you, the board, to see where past management, village manager, Mr. Keener, and then Mr. Harline with his management style, to see where the finances were then, and then transition into the current management, and then how that looks moving forward. And I think that will help the board and the residents see what happened, what transpired. And like I said, if it's just poor management and poor bookkeeping, that's fine. We can put that to bed and put that to rest and move on. But if it's something bigger or greater or worse than that, then you take the actions that we need to take from that standpoint. But it gives you the opportunity to maybe perhaps be on a clean slate, so to speak, is my understanding from the direction of the board that they're looking to go in, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Next. Trustee Kumar. Come on down.
In many of the departments that we saw up in the presentation, I see a lot on expenses, very little on the revenue side. Public Works was specific about where the revenues are going to come from. I didn't see that so much. And I think that matchup for me is extremely important, where the revenues are going to come from. Because if it's coming from the general fund and flowing through, it's different from, and that's happening in certain departments. They don't have their own revenue sources to kind of materialize how much that revenue is going to be is my problem at this point with the discussion we had. So where the revenue is going to come from, I think it will be in the budget, because when you actually get the actual material budget line items, we'll see where it's going to flow through from, which is negative, which is positive from that point. So, but what I see is a lot of increases in terms of all our department expenses, and quite frankly, we don't seem to see such an increase. The 2.9% is not a lot in terms of our CPI increase for our tax levy. So honestly, where that money is going to come from, is it going to eat into our general fund even more, which we don't have much space in the general fund. I think we're down to a very low reserve rate at this point, the last discussion we had. So I am concerned about, the direction we're going in. And the financial audit, is that going to bring out, honestly, we were reported certain numbers in terms of our reserves in the past, and our reserves have gone down considerably. So is that going to bring out that, number, that trend, how our trend is in that particular area? Because that's like 11% cost. Our basic audit, you said, costs about 11%, I think, on the slide, and this is going to be an increased cost to that 11% to do a forensic audit. Is that correct?
The 11% is our annual audit that we normally do. So that's of the finance department. That's what it costs to do your typical every year-to-year audit on that aspect. So that's what the 11% comes in. So that's just the contractual services in the finance department on that aspect. I understand what you're saying on the revenue part, that you didn't see anything. In the first slide, it showed that there's $27.1 million of general fund revenue. And that's part of the reason why I handed out that cheat sheet before the beginning here, is because I wanted you all to see the general fund has, a set of revenues that come in, and then they are to cover all of those departments, as you see on that cheat sheet, and their expenses. The other funds, such as Assistant Village Manager Michael Guerra mentioned, for the Public Works departments, a lot of them are their own funds. So when he talked about the revenues that are coming into those funds, then those expenses will mirror those revenues. If the revenues don't come in, such as the IEPA loans, then those projects just don't move forward and happen. So the biggest challenge, if you will, is the general fund, is looking at what your revenues are projected to be at and where your expenses are expected to be at. And that's why it's difficult for me at this moment to give you an affirmative number in the general fund, because that number has been so fluid and it has moved so up and down that it's not been consistent until the last week, to be honest with you. And we're trying to tie in with all those requests that we received into the general fund to see what that bottom line number is. And like I said, once we get the final quote from the insurance companies, because you figure on the health insurance side, the 20% increase alone is almost $750,000 to $1 million alone in health insurance. And so that's a big increase right there. And then the liability insurance as well with a 20% increase in that, that's another $400,000. That's a lot. And like you said, yes, 2.9% increase on the CPI. So that would be, once we get those affirmative numbers, you'll be able to very clearly see. And that's part of the reason why we did the consolidation of the different funds, is because if you look at in the general fund, the fire department had 3 different divisions, and so it was very hard to see how much does it really cost to run the operations of the fire department. You got to consolidate all 3 of those line items. Public Works Department, the same way. They track their own things internally for their needs. It wasn't, forestry and stormwater and streets in the general fund. There was no reason to break those out individually, so we consolidated them so that it's in one spot, so that it's easier to see and easier to track. So this way you can see what it costs to run those operations and then tie that back into revenues.
And to further answer that question, we're still working as a staff to try and present a couple ideas we're going to bring to the board. We're going to be doing that in 2026 for additional fees for different services that we provide. So it'd kind of be too early to present that right now.
Let me finish. Also with some of the discussions that happened with some of the different groups, like community development, we talked about the TIF funds and like the moving over. And I would like Michelle, if she could come to kind of discuss that aspect of the budget, because it doesn't really show if those TIF funds actually have the money necessary to do those projects.
So I'll start off on that and then pass it off to Michelle. But the TIP funds are governed by the property tax money that is strictly collected just for that area. So most of the TIP funds, if you look at that very last page that you get from me for the monthly financial report, it's the cash flow analysis by fund. So I'm just looking at it, the one that I had just passed out back in August. So TIP 7, which is the St. Charles Road corridor, right now is at a deficit of $23,000, but we're going to be getting $150,000 worth of revenue come next year, which is a couple months from now when property tax money starts coming in. So a lot of those expenses, like even for that fund, as long as the property tax money gets put into them, the expense will happen. So it's just because they're stated on there for projects, and correct me if I'm wrong, that is the plan and that is the goal as long as those revenues are in those TIP funds. If you look at TIP 6, which is the North Ardmore, Vermont, I apologize, I had North Avenue up on the slide on accident. As of August 30th, there is $164,000 in that fund. That's a positive sitting on that. So again, that as long as the property tax money comes in, those are the projects in the plans. It doesn't necessarily mean some of those projects take multiple years to happen. So your expense, even though it looks like it's a big expense, it'll take a couple years to actually spend out, which will mirror the revenue that's coming in from the property taxes on that end. Kenilworth, which is TIF 5, that's sitting at $636,000, a little over that in that fund. St. Charles 4 was consolidated, and then North Avenue is sitting over with a little over $5 million. So unless I've misstated anything, but I don't feel that I have from the financials on that aspect, those funds, like I said, will only happen as long as the money is there presently. I don't know if you want to spin off on that or add anything that I may have left out.
So just to kind of add up some of the amounts that I have included that we went over as far as planned projects. So Susie mentioned there's a little over $5 million in the North Avenue TIF. All of the capital improvements that are proposed for that TIF would total $900,000. So those would be able to be fully funded. TIF 4, all of those funds would be transferred. TIF 5, there's over $600,000 that we've proposed $210,000 in capital improvements. TIF 6, that's the one that there's 164. Right now we've planned 365. However, as mentioned, we can go into a deficit to complete projects if the board would like to move forward with those capital expenses. And then St. Charles is our newest that is in the deficit currently. And then proposed within that TIF is $120,000 of capital improvements if we'd like to move forward.
But again, we'll show those numbers will be more will be solid come, and I'm sorry I'm using the word solid, but when we have the budget hearing next month, you'll be able to see those beginning balances and what's proposed for expenses on those as well.
So there's no real discussion of new revenue sources. Do you foresee any new revenue sources in the next year or two?
As I previously stated, we're going to come to the board with about 2 ideas that we have as a revenue source or increased fees. And in addition to that, we're still brainstorming, looking at other ideas, and then I'll move the microphone over. We're on the same page on that one.
When you have this discussion, this is not so much a question. The arborist cost that we're talking about, I'd like to see what that cost would be to upgrade that arborist. And the increase in ambulance fees are going to full. What does that actually mean in terms of full? Does that give us any future ability to increase ambulance fees?
Just so I get this right, can you repeat that, please?
The arborist, I think, is the second part. Is
Yes, the ambulance fees.
You're going to full, right, up to the 100%. Does that allow for any future increases, or that takes the cap, and is there like an automatic increase that comes through that?
Great question. So the village board can set ambulance fees for whatever they want. In 2019, we signed up per ordinance to be with the GEMT, which is Ground Emergency Medical Transport, which is a federal program offered to ambulance providers to fill the gap between what Medicaid pays and what it costs to run an ambulance. In order to be a part of this, we had to sign an IGA, which we did. Every year we have to fill out, it's a 50-page questionnaire on what it actually costs. So when our initial ambulance fees in 2019, when we passed it, was a resident paid 50%, a non-resident 75%, which basically equated to a resident paid $1,254, a non-resident $1,881. With this ordinance, it was if our cost report went up, then we pay based on they pay based on the 50 and 75% still, which it did. Because as we get smarter with the GEMT and we realize that, well, we're not accounting for this, we're not accounting for that. So last year, our cost report went up to roughly $3,400, which then our ambulance rates, which currently are $16.96 for residents and $25.44 for non-residents. Now we get into payer mix. So what ambulance fees are a combination of private insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, self-pay, workers' comp, and auto insurance. So this GEMT is just for Medicaid. So a snapshot of the last 12 months, we've billed or it received $1.5 million, which is around 60% billing just for Medicaid. So when we say that we can, if we go to full cost report, so which is 100%, which is $3,400 roughly, we just sent it out October 1st. We'll get verified and sent back. We can make up that income to pay for those 3 additional firefighter paramedics. Okay. And just so you realize, we were planning on, we can possibly do a cow on this in January. We can obviously we'll present it back to the board because we'd have to present a new ordinance to do that if the board would like. Not a problem. But that's where the funding revenue would come from. There's a lot of money just sitting there on a table in this GEMT program that can offset that cost.
Let me just ask a few more about that. So this is just the Medicaid billing fees. Now, how do we get paid is it by a fee for service kind of thing? Well, like basically discussed rates for conventional insurance and other insurance, or is it all fixed at this Medicaid rate?
So we have to bill for ambulance fees the same across all, right? So it doesn't matter if they're Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, okay? It's what we get reimbursed. So Medicaid actually has a rate, and let's just say they're going to pay $250. If we bill them the full cost report, that's what it costs us. So this program, since we are part of this program, and this program's currently in around 20 states, so they allow us to have an offset for that. So we get that offset for that. So whatever our cost report is for Medicaid patients, we would get that. Now, if we provide for private insurance, all right, there are sometimes a cap that what they would pay for. And then we would have a balance pay, or we can have an option of, for instance, like private pay, which is only 1% of our total billing. For a resident, we're just waive it. It's 1%. What we're looking for is this 60% chunk for Medicaid.
I just want to say that's a good thing. Revenue, where we can get it from, is obviously good, and keeping that high also keeps our rates, I assume, high for the private insurance and everything else, right? Because it's a one-time rate. So I'm glad to see that as a revenue source being added.
To address the first part of your question, an arborist, I'll bring up Assistant Village Manager Mike Ware.
So for the arborist, the cost would be essentially included in the actual pay scale currently. When we reclassified with the ASME and did the side letter agreement, we did offer an incentive pay of 50 cents per hour for that certification. Unfortunately, we did not have any internal staff look to go into that. So we do have that option. So the initial cost would probably be setting a pay scale of what a normal laborer plus that incentive pay to be posted as a dedicated position, or we are entering into negotiations with ASME if there's possibility of changing that slightly. A fallback plan could be contracting it out, go into a contractual service versus a full-time employee, and explore those options as well. We were just positioning ourselves with the additional staffing to help on the other side of public works in terms of tree trimming, those sort of plantings that we could then dedicate other staff to fill in those positions. So the total cost would be equivalent, essentially in the same pay range that we would hire a new laborer at.
One more question, because you're up here. The IEPA loans that we have 6 of them, you said, currently active. Are they all running for how many years? When do they fall off?
Sure, yeah. So actually, I think we have.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry.
The IEPA loans that we have? Yeah, we're taking more. I just want to know if any of them are falling off our books at any time soon.
So yes, we just finished up one this past year. So the IEPA loans are 20-year loans. They're usually low interest, the interest ranges around 2%. That's all determined by the EPA with those 6. So we kind of have them staggered. We do have a couple falling off in 2029, and then the next rounds are like, we just got a few in 2020, 2021, so those are the 2040 range. And so I do have a complete breakdown that I can share with the board. But so we do have several coming up in the next couple years that will fall off. And then it's about a 10-year frame, and then the next round, and then there's another frame and the next round. So we just completed one in 24, and then the next round is 2029 is before. I believe we have 2 coming off in 2029, but I can confirm that with the board, for the board.
Thank you. I just have a few questions. For our IRMA, the risk management coverage, is that expected to increase that 15 to 20% range due to some errors of ours, or is that just the cost of business? Do we know? And then also, since you're coming up, another question. for HR is I was under the impression that we had an EAP program in the past that was connected to the health insurance plan. Is that not the case anymore? And does the health insurance plan typically have that covered, or is that an additional fee?
The last part for the EAP, currently we don't have one. I'm not sure when the last one expired or when it wasn't renewed. I'm not sure. All I know is right now we don't have it. So we're looking at getting it. Two parts of it, insurance could cover it, depending if the employee volunteers himself to go to get treatment for something. But there's also the case where you could be sent for a fit for duty by the village, and that would be on the village to pay for that, and then also pay for a report at the end. And I missed that first part. I didn't hear it clearly. The risk, so that the cost is based on our audit. They do it based on the financials, and the number that I gave, the 10% or 15 to 20% increase, is an approximate increase that they gave us without having the numbers. However, we are looking at other options right now with our broker to see if we could do better with another provider. So.
And my next question is about the hotel motel tax. It says that the cap for this tax is at 6%. Is that a suggestion that we raise that tax to 6% since ours is currently at 5%? And was the budget created with that 6%?
So the cap is 6%. We did not do the budget based on 6%. We did the budget based on 5%, and we figured when we do the proposal at the public hearing as part of our proposals to the board is we would bring that to your attention to see if that's something that the board would be interested in moving forward to, since it only affects a certain group of users, if you will.
My other question is about the NESRA fund. You mentioned that the ADA transition plan, we're supposed to have one every 10 years. Last one was done in 2013, and I'm assuming we did not do one in 2023, and that there's supposed to be an update every 5 years, and there is a cost to that. Can you explain the ADA transition plan and what that cost entails?
Yeah, so with the ADA transition plan, what would happen is we would have a consultant come to all of our rec facilities and parks, and they would go out and assess all of what's going on out there, what's accessible, what's not accessible. They would put together a report and saying, here is priority 1, here's priority 2, here's priority 3 at each park and facility. And then what would happen is it would basically be an Excel sheet created, and I would work with Buildings and Grounds to put together a completion list of what needs to get completed. And then we'd set funds aside. That NESRA fund would be something that we'd be able to use for reimbursement on something on a bigger project. We'd be able to use those funds for reimbursement. And then for every 5 years, I would come to the board. I would present to you guys, here is the 100 items that was presented for the ADA transition plan. We've completed 70 of them. Out of those 70, 60 of them are priority ones. So basically, I would give you guys a report of everything that was been completed in those 5 years, and then in another 5 years, come back and say, hey, you know what, out of 100, we've completed 100. Now it's time to get an update due to changes in, ADA compliance and things like that.
So I want to thank specifically the fire department and the police department, because they did provide kind of an organizational chart to let us know what staffing looks like. And my request is that we have that for all departments so that we do get a chance, since we do have a lot of changes that have happened. I would request that we have that not just in the budget. I know that we see that in the budget, but that we also get that just for us to have as reference as well, please. Thank you.
You will have that.
Thank you. I only have 2 questions. Will our late payments be a factor that's going to be determined for the IRMA? The fact that we made so many payments late and had so many late fees as well?
My understanding is no, that won't affect the renewal. Whatever late fees we're paying now. So we're also paying the fees for not having the audit completed. So that's approximately what, $3,000 a month I think we're paying right now. So that, I mean, that will not affect. I don't think that's going to affect the renewal. The renewal is based on different things.
And the renewal with any risk management is based on a 5-year window that they'll go back 5 years to look at our case history.
Thank you. My last question is the grocery tax that we voted to keep. Is that in the presentation, any of those figures? And if so, which fund is that going to be going into?
So the grocery tax is part of your sales tax. And so with the increase that we're looking at proposing for what we anticipate to get, the grocery tax is included in that. So we don't have that broken out specifically because had we not, the board not moved forward with that grocery tax, I would have had to back out the 1% from the projection. But being that we know that we kept it the same, it's been there all along. We just did the sales tax projection, including that, just as it's been previously in the past. So that kind of stays as status quo, if you will, with a minor projection. I believe it's either 2 or 3%. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I will go back to that and email all to let you know what that percentage increase is anticipated to be on sales taxes.
Thank you, Manager Rivas. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the staff putting this wonderful presentation together. It's very helpful, especially Director Micah. Your cheat sheet, basically, it helps a lot to understand where we're at. This question will be for our Assistant Village Manager, Michael Guerrero. On your Fund 32 and also on Fund 60, we discussed the capital project, which is about $1.4 million. How much are we thinking about spending on a sidewalk project? And also on the Fund 60, we have the engineering services for $2.258 million. It says here Ardmore Avenue, Villa Avenue Bridge. Would you be kind enough to kind of elaborate that where this engineering services and some of these other that we listed under one and how it's going to be with that?
Yes. So maybe it make life a little bit easier. I compiled. I didn't get it out to you, so I apologize. Kind of a brief overview of all the capital projects that are listed in the proposed budget. And kind of where they are at and the funds that they come from. So sidewalks, I apologize. I think I missed a slide, so I apologize to Susie. Fund 64 is our 0.5% sales tax that goes to capital infrastructure. Included in that is sidewalks. That's where we paid for sidewalks. In this budget, we're proposing $1 million. And how we got to that $1 million is we've been informed we got the $600,000 from our Representative Diane Sherrod Blairlock. If that money comes in, I'm looking to hopefully spend about $400,000 to bring it up to a nice even $1 million to do a significant amount of sidewalk in the community. So I did not have that in that slide. It is listed in that listing. In terms of the engineering, we've usually utilized the sales tax to cover that. And the reason we use that is it's a little bit less red tape than a lot of the other funding. Since that is a local funding, we don't have to go through as many steps with IDOT. So we use that a lot of times for our engineering to do our STP funded projects. Those STP funded projects, the surface transportation planning projects that are federally backed from the FHWA, that comes from DMMC or the state. By using local funds, it's a little bit more fluid and easier for us to actually get that work completed and in a more efficient manner. So we do have STP funding program for ourselves for the Villa Bridge. That is actually getting reimbursed from the state. So we spend out of the capital fund 60, and then that money comes back in through reimbursement requests. I believe our phase one, and Kevin can correct me, village engineer Kevin Mantles, we got about $86,000 in our first for phase one for the Villa Bridge. And I think we've made two reimbursement requests to come and backfill that from the state. And then Villa and Ardmore and Villa Avenue, we got the programming through DMMC to repair those roads. As part of the DMMC funding, it's an 80-20 split, but the preliminary engineering is not an eligible expense. Only construction engineering is. So we got to fund those up front. And that's where we utilize that Fund 60, which is the half-a-cent sales tax that's collected for the dedication of improvement of roadways in the village. Does that answer your question? Yes, it did. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for adding $1 million to this budget, because in the past we had only $100,000, $200,000. I think it's going to make a huge impact for the sidewalk project. I agree with Trustee Alfano that we do need a organizational chart for each department, seeing the employees where they're at and so forth. And this way, that will help us to see and kind of review the budget process where we're at. I think that will be very helpful. Thank you for doing that. I don't have any other question. Thank you.
We will try to get that to you in the next 2 weeks.
Sorry, just one more question. With all of the budget increase, trying to get more employees and whatnot, are we looking for any employee to become like a grant writer for us, which is something we learned at IML? A lot of different municipalities have somebody that's designated to writing grants.
In a couple of departments, we do have some grant writers. I've written grants. Dan McCann has written grants. Mike Ware has written grants. On the Parks and Rec side, Tim's written grants. Raise your hand if you've written a grant. Fire Chief Steve Stapleton. So we all have a little bit of expertise in writing grants, if that helps answer your question.
We talked about a lot of expense across departments in terms of software changes. Has there been kind of a across-the-board discussion of bundling possibilities and consolidation of those expenses? I know some of them weren't large. Is there that possibility? Has that discussion happened amongst the departments? That's a question I have.
Actually, I can answer this one. There was a lot of the changes in the softwares was basically a one-to-one cancellation. We would get rid of old software and we're instituting newer software that's faster, better. For instance, our FOIA software that we're moving into a different direction, it allows us to put several documents together and redact at the same time by doing word searches and things like that. So it improves our efficiency, our time in delivering those services back to the citizens. In terms of employees, software that we are going to be instituting, that allows us to better track their time and attendance, and also within the village, if they have to respond to a call for service, like if it's a public works call, then they're allowed to do that. We're still trying to determine what's going to be that check-in point, which is always when does their day start if it's after hours. So we're working through those processes, as well as we're going to do some enhancements to BSNA, what we currently have. And as we're still working through it, the monster that is BSNA, and it is great software, we're still discovering new things as we move along to help us improve our services and our using of that software. Thank
you. Are there any more questions from the board? Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move forward. But first, again, staff, thank you for all of the time and effort that you've put into this presentation. Again, one of the best I've ever seen. So thank you. Keep up the great work. Really appreciate it. All right, we're going to move into item 5A, ordinance for first reading. This is an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending Article 3 of Chapter 3 of the Villa Park Municipal Code to create classes Quad I, Quad L, and Quad Z liquor licenses and regulate liquor license operations. Do I have a motion, well, actually, for discussion? Do we have any discussion? No, not for first reading. Trustee Cordova? No. Okay, thought you were waving your hand. Okay, Trustee Kozar. Okay, I have a motion to waive the first reading by Trustee Kozar. So I have a motion to waive and approve the first reading by Trustee Kozar, second by Trustee Sabri. Do we have any discussion? Trustee Cordova?
So just on September 22nd, we had... Oh, thank you. On September 22nd, we had the conversation about bringing in Mike Maloney, Maloney and Associates. And during my trustee comments, I made a mention of, that felt pretty quick. We have ordinance for first reading. We've all pushed on that where we said, if it's up for first reading and anybody wants to push it for a second, we can. And that's not what happened last week on Friday or on Monday. And I think that was a disservice to the business owners as well as the village in whole, because what was happening, what was proposed was changed, and then we waived the first reading, and then we sent it across. I don't think there was any outreach to the business owners. I don't think there was any outreach to the folks that would be impacted by this whatsoever. And I'm not sure if since last Monday to this Monday that we've reached out to any of those business owners at all. And forgive me, I was gone all last week, so I haven't reached out to them at all to see if they've been contacted. I would have liked to see a cow first, discussion, and then come to a mutual agreement, have input from business owners, and then have a first reading, take it back to the community, see how they feel, and then have a second reading. At the end of my trustee comments, it passed over and it went through the list, and Trustee Alfano, you said, hey, if there's ever a question or we needed more time, we can ask for a second reading. So I'm asking for a second reading. We need to make this right. We're already too late for them. We're already too late for these business owners. And to push these first readings into a second and a vote this is what we have, right? So I would urge you all to not vote on this as a first reading and pass it. And I know we're already past the bad part of this, and this is basically a formality to mirror what we have for gaming and not, and it's a state statute. But for goodness gracious, we are just making ourselves look something because we are waiving our first readings. And I've seen at least 4 of us here. I've been on for 3 years. At least 4 of us that have been up here ask for, why are we waiving first readings? Why are we waiving first readings? And that's what happened last week. And that was a very impactful reading that was missed. So I would say let's not move it to a waive the first reading and push it through. And let's do the right thing and push it to a second reading. Let's reach out to these folks and get some feedback. Even though this is not anything that can impact those fees that you guys pushed last week, this is an opportunity to kind of make something right. So that's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Director House, I have a question for you regarding the liquor license renewal letters that go out to the businesses. Being that this goes into effect January 1, when do those letters need to go out?
Our preference would be to at least give 60 days notice for those business owners. Up to the board, once we have final numbers, if we need to push it back, we obviously would. But I'd like to at least give them 45 days to receive them. Some of them would go to the local location that they would have to get to their corporate headquarters. So we just want to provide adequate time for those businesses to do so.
My second question for you is more procedural from the village's standpoint. Is when do we accept payments from the business owners, and when are they due by before they can be issued the renewal license?
When we accept payment, if there's been no changes to their liquor license and they're just renewing, we would be able to immediately issue their license.
Thank you. I wanted to address something that Trustee Cordova mentioned, because I am somebody who I will typically not waive first reading. I am somebody that believes that we should hear from the public. But I was also saddened that I was misquoted on social media again. I did not vote yes to, I did not vote yes. So I did not waive first reading. I would really appreciate that. That's part of why we have a social media policy, sir. But I do think that when it comes to allowing our staff time and 60 days, I feel like there are some exceptions, and the exceptions are when we do have the need for our staff and for licensing and for those timing issues to go out. I do understand that. I also know, though, that this is not this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who has been paying attention, because this was an ask of us back in February or March of our former economic and community development person. We asked, would you please look into this? We were told that we would be given all of this information and all of this work would be done in July. That never happened. I don't even know if that work was left. So while this may feel like it's a surprise, we had been waiting for this for quite some time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that we did ask for that, and we never did receive that. So this has been a discussion. It has been something that we asked, where we said we would like to have licenses that reflect gaming and non-gaming. And I think this is something that we needed and we need to correct. So I will be voting yes on that this evening.
I do understand clearly that that 60 days is a preference and not a requirement. I do believe, and I was many times told, that we need to have second readings to give the community time for input. Irrespective of how we fall on our thought process, I am definitely have changed. I used to waive first readings all the time, and I've been called out on that by people on this board multiple times. And now we go back to the process of waiving the first reading. I do not think I want to waive the first reading, because I've learned over my time in the board over the past 4 years that it doesn't let our community have the input they need to have. If we are actually, as a board, listening to the public at large, we need to give them the time and input. A lot of times, this would mean that this reading went to the next meeting. There's not like that much time that's lost from now to the next meeting, or even if we go in between to mid-October. So I am not for waiving the first reading. We seem to be rushing head on in many of our choices, and I'm just not for that. Thank you. I will try to do that, Trustee. Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Kozar, but I will try to address that in the future.
Thank you. Just really quickly to address a topic earlier, the code provides, the village code provides that all applications for renewal of any license shall be made on or before 30 days prior to the expiration thereof. So any current holder of a liquor license would need to actually make the application 30 days before it expires. So factor in, as you will, the lead up to that date.
Trustee Constados.
Yes, thank you. I would like to just make it clear that the whole reason why the waiving of the reading was requested, as I had stated as to why, was due to the fact that the letters get to go out on time and require enough time for the business owners to decide what they wanted to do, whether they wanted to continue with that license or make a change, and have enough time to do so. So although second readings, yes, are very important, there is also certain circumstances, I believe, that sometimes it's okay to waive that. So I was just trying to give enough time so people could look into their situation and their business model, choose what they wanted to do, and be able to have enough time to appropriately do that. So I just wanted to make that clear. It was stated at the meeting that was why we were doing it.
So between Trustee Cordova and Trustee Kumar, you have these, I don't know, questions or something about this ordinance that's up here, and you want discussion, but there was an opportunity for discussion, and neither of you had any questions or discussion to it. What is the concern about adding additional licenses on? Like, I don't hear it. We're talking in the abstract. Is there anything that is unclear to you that you don't understand?
Have the business owners, I think you guys are here, have the business owners been, and this is my question, have the business owners been contacted in any way by the village to see how having new or different licenses impacts your business, your revenue, your forecasting for revenue? And so that's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't have time to, I just got back a couple days ago, so I don't have an opportunity to go and reach out. I don't know if people reached out. Those are my questions. So.
So, Trustee Cordova, you understand that we're not issuing new individuals who have licenses, right? Like, we're not adding more competition to this. These are just options for the same liquor license without gambling. So, I'm not understanding how it would affect revenue, how it would impact. Nobody's being forced to take this. These are a year ago, over a year ago, actually 3 years ago, I had mentioned that, and I had brought up at the board level, that every license should have an option without gaming to it. And it's fallen on deaf ears. We have a new administration that finally, like, administration is listening. They put this up. I still don't even understand your questioning. Like, what, give me a hypothetical of how a quad L or a quad Z is going to impact somebody's revenue.
So, from my understanding of the ordinance was the Liquor Commission said we're going to raise them to be 125%, I believe it was. You made the amendment to raise it to 200%, which was triple what their license was. So now we have, you can either pay triple for this license, or you can take this new license that is now same price. With the triple one, if you let go of that one, how much revenue is it going to impact? And I think it has to do with gaming. If you have gaming right now and you can't afford, or the triple of your license is going to cost X amount, and you don't do that, how much is it going to impact your revenue if you take the quad L or one of these proposed ones? I think that's a pretty easy question to ask, right? And you're saying we're not forcing them. My company makes $125,000 because I have gaming. I cannot afford, because I've forecasted and done everything I need to with the $125,000 that I make with this, where an additional, triple of my cost is going to cost X amount. Now I don't have that revenue. Like, it's going to be a down on the revenue, isn't it?
That's not what we're asking here.
This is not what this. But
This
you
is
asked
not what
you asked what the hypothetical was, and I'm giving it to you. A business that makes X amount of dollars now has to.
The hypothetical on our ordinance that's being proposed here.
So
Like you're talking
yeah,
in the abstract.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
So
understand
if a
what
person,
you're talking about.
so I don't even know where this is at.
Have you read the ordinance that's proposed?
So as a quad L or a quad I or a quad Z, how different is it going to? Yes, I understand this. How different is your revenue going to be if you have to take one of these?
You don't have to take one of those.
How different is
Nobody
your?
has to take it.
But we're tripling the cost of. You guys tripled their cost last week.
No, this is just a category that is proposed.
For the ones that are not that you can either have these, but there will be, you can have gaming with the counter, correct?
Gaming with the counter.
So these are made to have non-gaming for businesses that have these licenses, correct?
Nobody has those licenses yet. They're just
What
slots.
license
They're
would a
open.
person have if they needed to get these?
Did you not read it?
I did. Can you explain, please?
It is. I guess I don't even understand your question. What is it? It's a liquor license that
can you explain it?
doesn't have
Yeah.
gaming attached to it. That's what it is.
But a person that would take this would probably has gaming right now, correct?
No, they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have gaming right now. That's why you would take this license, because you don't have gaming.
Currently have gaming, but can a person with the original ones that these are the new ones. These are mirrored to have it where it's no gaming, correct?
It's an option for a liquor license with no gaming, correct?
So
And if you currently have gaming, and in your hypothetical, they're making $125,000, all right?
Mhm.
These licenses are for people who currently don't have gaming and don't have $125,000 in revenue coming in. So why would they want to pay more for a license that allows gaming if they're not utilizing gaming?
So
if you would like a hypothetical,
we're
I own the.
them to get these, right?
We are not forcing anybody to get it. So in your hypothetical, I used to own a bar called Fuel. We had a gaming component to it, but we chose not to have gaming. We never had that revenue. So if I could have moved to a different license that I didn't have to pay for gaming, I would have saved money. Nobody would have forced me. I could have stayed with the same license and paid the more fees. No problem. It's my ability to do so. This gives you an ability to save money. Nobody's forcing you to do it. If you'd like to save money, save money. If you don't want to save money, don't save money.
Pay the triple, right?
No. Well,
Yeah.
you pay whatever the fee is if you're utilizing it, if you use it.
Yeah. So
Would you pay insurance on your car if you never drove your car? I mean, like,
yes, yes, we have to.
okay. If you have a non-running car that you don't use, that's in storage, and, why would you pay for something you don't use? If you have that option, that's it. It's giving you an option not to pay for something that you don't use.
But if I fix that car and I want to drive it,
Oh,
would I be
by
able
all
to get
means,
that?
then you should.
So you're
But now
saying
you're
that-
utilizing
so now
it.
we're saying that
So
if
if anybody wants to have gaming and
So-
they have a gaming license, they can use it, but they have to pay to use
So if a
it.
business right now has the opportunity to have gaming, if they don't have gaming, they have this option to take these licenses that we're trying to create, and then they would save money.
Correct.
But they would probably have a very low to zero chance of getting the gaming license back, let's say in a year when they can't afford it, or when they fix their business, or whatever kind of restrictions we're gonna put on that. There's a very good high chance that you would not be able to get that gaming license ever again, correct? I mean, just looking at how this board has been moving, we're moving towards a very steep jump into having gaming. It's triple the cost of the license now. So if you're a business, you're a restaurant in town and you don't have gaming,
right?
And you could take one of these, which I think it's a pretty good idea if they don't want to do that. But in a year, would they be able to get that class any of these classes that allow gaming.
Well, come to the board and tell us what you're going to do.
But we've already said no to numerous businesses that have come. I would think if I were a business and I were either to take one of these or keep the license that currently allows gaming, even if I don't utilize it, I would take that one. I'd have to stretch myself and stretch that budget to give myself the opportunity to make it, to be able to.
But that's
get
your
that budget.
decision. If that's what you want to do,
But we've
go for
we've
it.
all- we've made it kind of unattainable by going from what the Liquor Commission was trying to do, saying it would be 25% if they've covered CPI for the last 5 years, versus saying we're going to triple the cost of this. It's not a barrier to entry. This is a barrier to get out. I mean, or to leave. So this is a fallback on you don't have to. And I agree with you. If you don't want to have gaming, you should get one of these. If you
There
ever
you go. Ding,
yeah,
ding, ding,
yeah,
ding,
yeah.
ding.
But if you ever think,
I mean, that's
yeah,
it.
but we're
If you
actually,
don't have
but we're
gaming
actually
and you don't
pushing.
want
We're
it,
going to be pushing more
it.
people to get gaming, which is the exact opposite of what you guys wanted. This is what you guys ran on. No more gaming. Now we're giving the opportunity. We've pushed them into. I'm almost certain we're going to have at least one. And if that's true, then we've done ourselves a disservice of saying we no longer want gaming in Villa Park, but we're going to triple the cost and we're going to make you either do it or take one of these and never have the opportunity again. I think we're going to see at least one business take that where they didn't have gaming and they're going to pay for that, and that's
Then
their choice.
That's their choice. And you just said it right there. You think it's a good idea if you don't have gaming and you're not
Well, yeah,
going to
because
utilize
it's triple the cost now. Yeah,
to go
Yeah,
get
'cause
one of these
it's
licenses.
triple the cost. Yeah,
So, I mean, you just said it right there. It is a good idea.
I'd like to speak to some business owners and see what what kind of pressure they're in and what kind of ability they have to be able to stay with that license they currently have versus class, quad L, quad I, quad Z, and talk to them and say, how do you feel about what's happening? And I think from what we've talked about has said that we're okay with that. We're okay with having a second reading so that we can go out to community and get some feedback from them. And if we don't do that, then we're hypocrites at best.
I don't think we're hypocrites. Like, they have the opportunity. If it's a good investment for them and they want to keep their existing license, they can do it. They have to invest like anybody else.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to them. I mean, has anyone
Great.
talked to you about that?
I mean, have you reached out? Have you sent emails
Yeah,
to them?
I've talked to a couple people, and
what have they said?
There's 4 of them here that I'd love to talk to. I don't know what they're going to say. Some of them said we're
Well, you
forced.
said you talked to
oh, yeah,
4
yeah. They're
different
saying we're
people.
being forced either to spend more, and then we're going to have to flip that to our gaming company to pay us more.
These 4? Is that what you're saying? That
I
you
haven't talked
talked
to these 4 gentlemen. No,
4 other people have told you that.
I didn't say 4. I said I haven't talked to these
I
4.
thought you just said 4.
No, I said I've spoke to at least 2.
Okay.
And those 2 people said, one of them without a license said we might have to.
Might have to what?
Stay with the liquor license that allows gaming, even though they don't have gaming.
So that's their choice.
Yeah, I just want to know what they're doing. I want to know what the thoughts are.
And in the meantime,
is that
you
not
don't.
what we're supposed
And
to
in
do?
the meantime, you don't want to have the option, so
Oh.
that letters can go out and people can start planning. Because right now they're in limbo.
Yeah, but look
because
what
of
you guys
this
did last
late.
week. You guys gave them one chance to say, they didn't even have an opportunity to speak. And if all we're doing with these new commissions, and we talk about transparency, and we talk about the opportunity to have a voice with these new commissions, that's not what happened.
So you realize, though, that this has been going to the Liquor Commission for the last 2 months.
Right.
So, like, for
So-
90 days, it's been discussed.
so if you're-
For a year, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
For a year, it's been discussed. It was brought up at a meeting that we wanted these new licenses brought up. So this is not a new thing. You think this all happened in a week?
There's no commission, there's no community outreach. The new commissions have been in place.
What is community outreach? You want to go to every single business and
a
get
cow?
like that's what we do up here. We are 6 people up here.
A cow
that make
a letter.
decisions.
We know who has business licenses.
Point of order. I mean, this
A cow, a letter that goes out to business owners, license holders.
It's the end of October.
Point of
How
order.
much time do
done
you
this.
have?
We have time.
Hey, hello.
Thank
Stop
you.
it right here for a second. Can I have that real quick?
Thank you. All right, thank you.
So
All right. We got a point of order. Do we need a recess? Okay. Okay. Point of order. Trustee Constados.
Okay. First, I would like to say that you keep saying that we're forcing people, which is not true. Everybody knows the different type of licenses. Everybody has an option based on whatever their business model is to choose the license that best suits their situation. Now, you keep talking about gaming, and then you talk about how we say that we don't want any more gaming in town and that we already turned away a couple of places. Well, if we're going to be transparent, let's be transparent. We had a business come forth asking for a full pour license, and when asked numerous times whether they were planning on putting gaming in or not, skated around the question. And the truth be told, that person knew exactly they were putting gaming in their facility because they applied for their license back in November. So, are we supposed to sit here as a board and have a business person approach us deceitfully, stating their business plan is going to be one thing, to get what they want and turn around and do the other? I'm sorry. I own a business in this town too. I do not have the luxury of supplementing my income when COVID came with gaming. And that's my choice to have the type of business I have instead of a liquor license or a bar or a restaurant. But when COVID hit, all of the other small business owners in this town that are auto facilities, stores, boutiques, what have you, had to figure out how to supplement our income. We're not complaining, and we're not coming to the board to try to open up a business and be deceitful about it. Be honest. Come in and say, yes, I want to open a bar. Yes, I want to put gaming in. Yes, I'm going to be discreet, though, and put it in a different room. Yes, I'm going to do this. Don't come up here and try to say that you're going to get a full pour license and you're not going to put gaming, or you don't know, or we're a family facility and this, that, and the other. Everybody wants us to be transparent and honest. What about the people that are coming forth to us? Does that not go both ways? For one, okay? I'm not done yet. For two, people with gaming have that income already. So I don't know where you're trying to justify like they're going to lose income. Let's just take an example. And it's public knowledge. Anybody can go to the gaming website and see how much every facility makes, okay? You can plug in our Villa Park. You can plug in a whole year's date. You can plug in a month or whatever. If the fee is $9,000 for 1 year, and after you have paid the village, which we don't get a big amount like everybody thinks we do, and you pay the state and everything else, and in your pocket, although you have to pay your tax, let's just say $200,000. Once you pay tax, you clear, let's just for reference of numbers, you clear $160,000, and you're going to tell me somebody can't afford $9,000. Are you asking me? No, I'm just saying in general. You're making it sound like the fee is so high that a business can't pay it. They're supplementing that doesn't even include the cost of liquor. It doesn't include the cost of food. It doesn't include the cost of some of these places do events with cover charges and whatever. Yes, they have overhead. I'm not ignorant. I have a business. I have overhead too. But the amount of revenue they're generating is way more than $9,000. And if it isn't, their model for having gaming isn't working for them already anyways. It has nothing to do with us raising the fee. It's giving each business owner's the opportunity to look at their business and say, here's what I'm making. Here's my profit. Is it worth me still paying $9,000 to keep my gaming to pocket $150? Heck yeah, it is. I mean, I wouldn't have to think twice. Or here's my business. I have gaming. I'm paying $9,000 to only really come up with 20 grand in my pocket. Well, maybe I don't want to pay the $9,000 then. But nothing is being forced here. Everybody has an option. There's several licenses to choose from. People need the opportunity and the time that we have allowed them before these letters to go out to look at their portfolio and look at their plan and see what best fits them. So let's just not be misleading by making residents think we're forcing a business to do anything. Thank you.
Thank you. In the memo in our packet, there's background information, and it says why this has been brought to our agenda. But it also says there are other changes in this ordinance to ensure consistency with these new licenses and incorporate statutory regulations. And part of that says Section 10 of the ordinance contains the only changes not related to those 3 new license classifications. So it's not just about license classifications. And I think that this is something that should also be addressed. It says the Illinois Video Gaming Act 230 ILCS 40/65 was amended in the past few years to require that terminal operators pay half the terminal fee for video gaming terminals, with licensed establishments paying the other half. And this ordinance will ensure that the village code matches the statute. This section also adds a requirement that an owner, manager, or employee over the age of 21 must be present during all hours of operation of video gaming terminals. This change ensures consistency with other regulations that require employees to be 21 years of age to serve alcohol at a licensed establishment. So this isn't just about creating some additional licenses. This is also about aligning to statute. And I would like for either Trustee Kozar or for legal to address more about the Illinois Video Gaming Act and what that particular part of this memo is discussing, please.
Thank you. Yes, so those additional changes were things that legal in our review of the liquor ordinance, following Trustee Kozar's suggestion to include this on the agenda, in looking over the ordinance, discovered these 2 cleanup items. One of which is, as you stated, reading from the memo here, the $250 license fee. That is the maximum that a non-home rule municipality can charge per terminal. That is something that is required by statute to be divided evenly between the operator and the licensed establishment. That is in the statute, which means it isn't necessarily necessary to be in the village code, but for consistency for any license holders or people looking for a license to be able to look in just one place and see the regulations is beneficial. The other aspect is ensuring consistency to make sure that employees are 21 years or older when they are serving alcohol at a licensed establishment. That is already the case in everywhere, with taverns and restaurants and things like that. But there was a gap in the language when it came to just operational video gaming at that time. So that's why we added that as well.
I think the argument about the ordinance was never my point. The argument is about why we're waiving the first reading. Just because this is an ordinance that we think is benign, doesn't have any effect, doesn't matter, doesn't mean we should waive the first reading. Actually, we waived the first reading on the ordinance last week, and it did have an effect. It was not benign. It was a tripling of people's costs. And after saying that would be too much, some trustees still voted to waive the first ordinance and did not give the choice to the public at large to actually give their opinion. That being businesses, that being other people in town. It is not only about the businesses are reaching out, others have the right to weigh in. And as trustees, we have to give them that chance. And I understand the 60 days, the 40 days. I would like to say that how people augment their funds with regards to business can be very different depending on their circumstances. During COVID, restaurants were unbelievably affected, which we can see in the city of Chicago in comparison to other businesses, because quite frankly, who during a time of a health concern is going to go and eat publicly in a restaurant removing a mask? Did that actually make sense? No. So we cannot compare our business to the restaurant business necessarily. So we want to be a little bit careful with that. That is not fair in comparing businesses. That's what I would say. All businesses are different. Their requirements are different. Yes, they have revenues, they have losses, but we do not want to go down that slippery slope. Every business is different. And I, for one, have been asking for quadruple I, quadruple L, quadruple Z for months. I'm one of the trustees that asked for those kind of things, that we should have these licenses. So I am not against those licenses. What I am against is waiving the first reading again, because we've been doing that consistently and not giving the public time to weigh in. That's all I'm against. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? And I guess I don't know who this is a question for, if this is for Manager Rivas, for Attorney Morton, but or my ignorance is not knowing this, but has a municipality ever reached out to business owners asking whether or not they want to increase their CPI increase for the liquor licenses, or generally reach out to businesses to ask them if they did this? And in the history of Villa Park, this is, to my knowledge, never happened.
I'm not aware of such a thing. If that were the case, then we're looking at increased fees for water. Then do we reach out to every resident to start doing those kinds of polls? It would be labor intensive to do that. Maybe moving forward, we could have a meeting of business owners and start incorporating maybe the chamber to have see what's on the minds of some of the businesses, some of the residents moving forward into the direction of the village in different aspects.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because the Growth Commission has brought that up in conversation regarding a local business owner meeting with the village that might help communicate with us a little bit better on things like this. Trustee Constados.
Thank you. The only other thing I would like to say is this, is there's different types of businesses everywhere, okay? And I'm just going to use myself as an example, because this is the type of business I own. Being that I own an auto facility, it's my job as the owner to know my regulations I have to be within. It's my job to know I need triple traps. It's my job to know what kind of things I need to be in compliance with OSHA. It's my job to know these things. They're not going to come to me. The village isn't going to come to me and say, you need triple traps. They're going to come to my facility when they inspect it to see if they're there. And I get it. I get you sometimes don't live in the place where your business is at, but there has to sometimes be some accountability as well for the person who owns the business. If you own a bar, You have to know what the laws are where you're at. You have to know what, requirements you have to have your licenses and this and that. So, yeah, maybe having business meetings is a good thing to bring all different types of business owners together at a meeting to ask questions, to understand better when are our letters coming out. So a year from now, when the letters go out again, the business owners know they're coming out at this time. This is when they have to be paid. So they're a little more informed as well. But you can't always take the blame and throw it on the board. We all have to have some self-accountability as well, especially as a business owner. You have to know what your business is about and what your regulations and stuff are that you need to follow. Just like you need to know how much bread you need to order, or how much wine you need to have, or how much oil you need to have with filters sitting on your shelf. You know what I mean? So there has to be some personal accountability as well.
Thank you. Sir, Trustee Kumar.
And I'm not denying the facts that businesses need to have accountability and know the law and know the rules. It's when we change the rules quickly and don't give them time to make their decision, think about it, that we come into a problem. And that's what we have done here. We're changing things way too quickly. It's not the change that's the problem. It's the process by which the changes are happening. And the explanation of the 60 days is a weak one, to say the least. It's as staff already said, it can be anywhere between 45 to 60 days. Let's give them a time to input. Many of the times when we've let something go to the second reading, it comes back the same. There is no input. People have come to the conclusion that it's okay, but why not give them that time? Why waive the first reading consistently on things that we just don't give them even the feeling that they have the input? That, I think, is not acceptable. That's it.
Thank you. I just have a question for all our trustees. Do we know how many establishments we have right now with gaming? Yeah. 28, I believe. So all we're doing here is that some of the businesses, if they can afford it, they can have the gaming. If they cannot afford it, they have a choice to go to non-gaming license. Villa Park is very small. It's not that big. 28 establishments right now, what we have, I think they are enough for this town. If we need to go play, we can go wherever we want. We have enough spaces or places right on St. Charles Road, 18 of them. So all we're doing is we're giving a choice. And the new ordinance is very clear. I mean, if you really pay we're just streamlining this. Whatever it is, if the business owner cannot afford, it's cost of doing business, getting a license. Some of the doctors, that their licenses are triple and quadruple because they are in practice. This is the same thing. It's no different than cost of doing business. So, we could always ask for how many times we have to send a police over or something else to accommodate those business owners that they have those licenses with gaming or non-gaming. All we're doing here is making a streamline. We can talk about first reading, second reading. In order to collect the licensing for next year, we do need to give them ample time so they can think what they want to do. So by changing, not doing the second reading, It's not going to make any difference. Everything has already been discussed in the previous meeting.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions, or concerns? So for those of you out there, business owners as well, there have been a lot of changes that have gone on, especially with our commissions and especially with the local Liquor Control Commission. Now, I understand that you might have questions with that, but there are new processes moving forward when it comes to liquor licensing in Villa Park. And that all starts with the Liquor Control Commission. Now, the reason why I established it this way is because our previous village president was caught in an email on village email address making promises to business owners that he could not legally do. Let that sink in for a minute. The creation of the local Liquor Control Commission was for transparency, for discussion. That's what has been happening since I became village president. A lot of these issues have been brought up and talked about, and they are on YouTube. So to alleviate any confusion moving forward, if you have liquor control licensing issues, you can contact me because I'm the local Liquor Control Commissioner, but you should also go before the Liquor Control Commission Board. That's simple. It's just like any other meeting where you can have public comments and you could talk. There's also an email address, local liquor control commission @invillapark.com. If you are a business owner and need clarification on some of these things, I ask that you reach out. Let's have these conversations. Okay, we have a first and a second. We have a motion to waive first reading and to approve, made by Trustee Kozar and seconded by Trustee Sabri. There's no more discussion, and we are going to go ahead and move to a roll call vote.
All right. Trustee Alfano.
Yes.
Trustee Cordova. No. Trustee Constados. Yes. Trustee Kozar. Yes. Trustee Kumar. No. Trustee Sabri. Yes.
Okay, that ordinance passes. We are moving along to item 6A, a resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, authorizing and approving a proposal from Baker Tilly to provide forensic accounting and consulting services. Manager Rivas.
Thank you, Mr. President. A little bit of background. The Village Board has received multiple staff reports over the past few months detailing numerous financial mistakes that have been made by prior employees and contractors. Trustee Alfano believes that a forensic financial audit is necessary to provide the board, the village manager, and village staff with a more detailed understanding of where the village currently stands financially. The village solicited proposals from 4 firms that engage in governmental forensic auditing services. The village received 3 proposals from Baker Tilly, Benford Brown and Associates, and Green Forensic Accounting Solutions. Staff determined Baker Tilly's proposal is most suitable for the village. And I know one of the requests that was made by the trustees was that can we do a 10-year audit? In our discussion with the 3 companies that submitted proposals, they all are in agreement that a 5-year audit would be appropriate. Their determination going back 10 years would create too many variables. Line items have changed, structure changed, just too many variables to really make any true determination in going back 10 years. Also had a sidebar conversation through staff of another financial auditor who said 5 years would be definitely relevant and probably give us the answers that we are seeking. So we are really suggesting that 5-year moving forward. If we were to go with a 10-year, you had the proposal from the company we're recommending, and that's Baker Tilly, and that'd be anywhere in the range from $100,000 to $150,000. If we were to go to a 10-year, you could see that number double. And I don't know if we would get the return on our investment in making that decision moving forward. That is all I have, sir.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for the resolution? Trustee Sabri? Do I have a second? I'll second. Trustee Constados? Is there any discussion? Trustee Kumar.
To do a 5-year audit, am I correct? For the 5-year audit, it's about $153,000. Okay. And do you think, I'm going to ask Director Mika this, do you think that is a worthy expense with our current budget to do a 5-year audit, given, is it going to add value, or is it merely to make us look good? Because I need to know if you feel there's added value from this audit from your perspective.
So I think that's more of a personal question and a personal preference for the board. You know, the board, my understanding, is looking for some answers regarding the audit, which is something that I cannot do. I don't have the experience on it to be able to, nor do I have the time to, or my staff for that matter, to do that. So it depends on what you're looking for as the board to do it. I can't direct you as to what you should or shouldn't do and why you feel that way. I just don't feel comfortable.
And looking at the prospectus and the proposal, it's in 3 phases. The first phase obviously would be a sit down with the company if the board agrees and is amenable to it. Then we could better direct this group in that phase 1 to look at the things that we think there may be an issue with. So it's broken down in 3 different phases if you look in the prospectus.
So there's no additional benefit actually to you as a finance director. This is mainly just for the board's purpose, for clarification for the board.
In doing this, if the board does agree to do this and votes for this, one of the things I'm hoping to get out of this is better direction, best practices moving forward with our financial situation and the decisions we make as a village moving forward based on the recommendations in their phase 3. That is my hope as the village manager.
Thank you. Recently, a few of us went to the IML conference recently held in Chicago, and they did hold classes on finances. And some of the experts that spoke there said that usually items such as paying dead people on your books usually is a big red flag that something's not right. And I know that there's only one instance of that, and that goes back to insurance, and I don't know, and I can't understand why that would happen, but the common denominator that keeps popping up is that, and it was said multiple times tonight, is that previous management failed us. So reverting back to what IML was telling us and training us is that over the last couple of years, with trustees repetitively asking for updated budgets, with the village submitting a budget to the county that doesn't even match what we were given finally here, when you have outstanding debts for not months but years, these are all red flags. And I understand that a forensic financial audit comes with a cost, and that there might be some sticker shock with the $100,000 to $150,000. But I will ask the question: can we afford not to do this? Because going to these trainings and all of these red flags that they've taught us, I have to go with what they tell us, what the experts are telling us. And this is not an easy decision, but I think it's one that's valid and worth exploring. So that way we have some clarity and some closure to how bad things had gotten. But also the purpose of a forensic financial audit is also to put you on a level playing field and to give you recommendations moving forward with what you have currently. And I believe that is worth the cost. Trustee Constados.
Thank you. I would say that with the short span of time that Ms. Mika has found all these issues that have popped up, I would be willing to not spend $60,000 on trees and $25,000 on benches that we never purchased anyways, we just found out. And I don't even remember how much it was for fancy garbage cans. I would rather put the money towards this audit because there is just a lot that doesn't make sense. There's no way any corporation or big business would go a year to a year and a half paying an employee that's not an employee's health anymore, or even a person who passed away. No way. Ask any corporation. I mean, I definitely 1,000% am absolutely for this. It's not only, in my opinion, to clarify things for us, it's to clarify things for our residents. It's their money. And it's also to help clarify things for our new financial advisor that we brought on, that walked into this situation and has been handling it with the utmost grace. Let's give her a clear playing field to start on as well. Let's put everybody's mind to rest. Nobody's saying anything is going on, but should the findings show that something was going on, well then, that's a whole nother meeting to have. But again, we're going back to accountability. Accountability. We have to also make an approach from now here on moving forward that we are going to hold people accountable. Everybody wants to hold us accountable for our waiving of the readings and this and that. Everybody else needs to be held accountable as well. So I will 1,000,000% vote for this tonight.
Thank you. So, as Manager Rivas read, I am the one that asked for this, and I did do that in writing, and I know that required somebody else to second. I don't know who it was who seconded that.
I second.
Okay. I appreciate that support because, as you know, I have been asking for just a copy of the budget from last year for quite some time, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't look right. It started to get a little bit more irritating, and then it started to feel like something was just off. And then when steward really to heart, like, I'm responsible for that. We're all responsible for that. We needed to have our eyes on the ball, and we weren't paying attention, or maybe we were, and it was being deflected into something else. But I really do believe that this is in the best interest. I'm a little confused though, because I was told 100 to 125 and somewhere 150 came up, 150,000 came up. Did that change? Okay. Okay. So that it said 125,000 in the initial. But I do think that we can't afford to not do this. This is something that we need to know just where we are financially. We need to be the responsible financial stewards for our community. We need to know where we stand. I'm not sure when a forensic audit has been done, if a forensic audit has ever been done for our community, but I really do think it would. This is the time to do this. This is the time for us to know exactly where we are and where we stand with our finances. And I appreciate those who supported that.
Thank you. I'd just like to clarify the cost of it. I think that there might have been some confusion just because of other proposals that we had gotten. We had received a proposal that likely would have been around $150,000. This proposal, though, that you're approving tonight is $100,000 to $125,000. The specifics will be known at the end of the work. They're at an hourly rate, but this is a ballpark that they were able to give us, and frankly told us that it would be on the high end of what they would expect. Like, this range is on the high end of what they would expect. But so the 150 was another proposal.
Thank you. Trustee Alfano, I know I second your request, your motion. I know originally we were asking for 10 years. So what we're looking at is 5 years. I think 5 years should show us where we're at. Since I have taken this position here, I was given 2023 budget and that's just a reference thing. We are in 2025 toward the end, and we have a budget which we don't know where we stand as of today, even with that copy we received, because we are still finding certain things that we don't know where we're at. 2.6, if I remember a few meetings ago, and it could be more. So I think it's a good start. I don't know why we are not even saying we should go forward with that forensic auditing so we can have a fresh, clean start where we're at today. And my recommendation would be that if we find further issues with this past 5 years, I'd like to see more. What's so hard? We are spokespersons for the village of Villa Park resident. I think the resident need to know where we stand and what's going on as of today. And we spend a lot of money on other studies and so forth. I think this money will be well spent. You will see through that. And I will say again, 5 years is good, but if we need to, I don't know why we are hiding. What we are hiding? Go 10 years. Thank you.
My problem was with the number of 125, 150. It's a tremendous amount of money. If we're complaining about benches and garbage cans, and this is actually almost a year's salary for some of our people in town, and we're talking about a stringent budget, there's got to be a strict added value from this $150,000, and it's a nebulous added value in this case. It's not a clear added value. We're speculating an added value. It's not known that there's going to be a real added value to this $125,000 expenditure, and that is my problem with it. If I knew there was a clear added value to this forensic audit, I'd be right on it. I cannot say that, as far as I can see, a lot of things have been found by our finance department. They've been on it. They're working on it. They're doing most of the work. Why are we hiring an outside company for $125,000 to do what they've already done? We're like double paying people, and this is my biggest problem.
Trustee Kumar, just to reiterate what Director Micah already said, is that this is beyond her wheelhouse. So we've only done what we can do so far. But you... what... Hold on. Hey, hold on. Let's have hey. Hey, let's have some order here. Come on. We got this. We can talk this out. All right? We got this. All right. Trustee Kumar, what I was referring to, though, is that I understand your dissatisfaction with the response from Director Micah. But and let me speak, please. But you are saying, what you just said was that the cost, we've already are going to do what we're going to do, that we've done it already, but we haven't done it already because it's beyond the wheelhouse of Director Micah. She did say that this goes beyond her scope. So this is what we're talking about right here. This is what's in question, is going beyond her scope into this. Trustee Alfano.
I guess my question is, what would make it worth the $100,000 or $125,000 to spend? That would be my question for you, because for me, we are the financial stewards. We already know that there's a problem. We don't know how deep that goes. We don't have the staff to be able to find out how deep that goes. We need to figure that out. We need to figure out exactly what we have and what we don't have and what has been spent and where it's been spent. So I'm legitimately asking and really want to hear, what would it take? What's the answer that you want to hear to spend the money?
What and when and how it was spent is fine if you're going to recover those funds. Okay? Are we going to get those funds back? Right? They're gone. At this point, we have to start with a clean slate. There is no choice. We are starting with a clean slate. We already have started with a clean slate. We have an excellent finance director. She has looked into a lot of things. We're spending another $125,000 to find something in the winds. And honestly, when we find it, what do we gain from that? I don't see the positive there. When we have the numbers in front of us, we're going to look at what's in the bank. We know where the bank is. This is just for our planning in the future. Once we get the numbers, we can get there. We just need the real numbers, which they're working on day in and day out.
You gotta love this passing of the mic game that we've got going on here. I understand where you're coming from. $125,000 is a lot of money. It sure is, and I hate to ask our residents to pay this cost, but based on what has been presented, I think it's essential. It really is. This is something that needs to happen. But what I think, and I might be speaking out of turn here, what you don't understand is that it's not just about what it's uncovering. These institutions for forensic financial audits, this is what they do, okay? But part of the process, and I think Manager Rivas was talking about the different stages of a forensic financial audit. One is where they tell us what their recommendations are moving forward for what we've already identified and what they have already identified. Because, to my knowledge, the Village of Villa Park has never been in a situation like this or done a forensic financial audit. So how are we going to know what to do moving forward with what we know and what we find from this? And the value of doing this is that company that has experience in doing this will set us straight. This is clearing the playing field.
Thank you. And to President Patrick's point, we have to know what's happened, but then we have to then correct. And we can't always self-correct. We try. And we can do that internally. We have staff now that is here to help us to do that internally. But as we've seen, staff changes and staff turns over and people leave and people for many different reasons. It's not always consistent. And we need to have a way to create some consistent rules, some consistent ordinances, some consistent policies, and be able to say, well, these are the mistakes that we've made in the past. We don't know, because we're not the ones that are in the business. We don't know what that looks like, but we can help create the policy along with what we find out. And then we've created that structure to allow other people to plan moving forward. And I think that that's well worth the $125,000.
Thank you. Trustee Constados. Manager Rivas, looks like you're getting a little tired.
Thank you. I just want to point out that when you say, what are we getting out of it? We're getting out a lot. Okay? Everything that you get out of life isn't always tangible. We're not going to get something maybe per se that we can see every day outside in the lawn every day. But what we're going to get is the information. What we're also going to get is accountability. What we're also going to get is sending a message that no, you're not going to come to our village and lose $2.6 million and not be held accountable for it. We don't want to keep attracting this type of people to employ here. We need to start correcting this. And although in the end, we may not have something we can physically hold, we're going to have answers. And that within itself, to me, is worth the $100,000 to $125,000. And I think too that it's worth it for our new director as well. She wouldn't be suggesting it and or on board with it. I'm not necessarily suggesting it, but on board with it if she didn't feel it was the right thing to do as well. And I think it was a little inappropriate to state, like, what is she, when you maybe you just phrased it incorrectly, what is she getting out of it? There's no personal gain for her out of this. She's doing her job and she's trying to help us out and get us on a clean slate. So maybe it was just not worded properly.
Trustee Kozar, Cordova, do you guys have anything to say?
Depending on what we get out of this audit, potentially we can make an insurance claim to reclaim some of the money that's been lost or misappropriated or embezzled or who knows what it is. But that is an option for us. And Trustee Kumar talked about new sources of revenue. It takes money to run a village. And tying this back in, not that we're doing it for the financial audit, but, you know, it just so happens that the amount of money that is going to be raised from increasing the licensing with gambling attached to it is pretty close to the amount of money that we have to spend on doing a financial audit to know where we're at. So it takes money to run a village, and we have to be cognizant of that, and there's expenses to it. So all this talk about how you want new revenue, but yet when there is an opportunity for new revenue on the table, you don't want it. Well, this is why we need new revenue, and this is why we have to cover some of our expenses.
Okay, I have a motion on the table to approve the resolution by Trustee Sabri, seconded by Trustee Constados. Clerk Lauken, roll call, please.
Trustee Alfano. Yes. Trustee Cordova. Yes. Trustee Constados. Yes. Trustee Kozar. Yes. Trustee Kumar. Yes. Trustee Sabri. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we do not have executive session this evening, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Seconded by Trustee Constados. Any discussion? Okay, voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, we are adjourned at 8:55 p.m. Good evening.